You support Hamas, do you not?
Senator, oddly enough, I'm going to say thank you for that question because it demonstrates the purpose of our hearing today in a very effective way.
Let's start first with a yes or no.
Hamas is a foreign terrorist organization that I do not support, but you asking the executive director of the Arab American Institute that question very much puts the focus on the issue of hate in our country.
Well, I got your answer, and I appreciate it. What is the, you support Hezbollah too, don't you?
Again, I find this line of questioning extraordinarily disappointing,
Is that
Senator.
a no?
That
Or
you have Arab American constituents that you represent in your great state.
Yes, ma'am, I understand that, but my time's limited, and I apologize, but is that a yes or a no?
Yes or no question to do I support Hezbollah? The answer is I don't support violence, whether it's Hezbollah, Hamas, or any other entity that invokes it.
You can't
so
bring
no,
yourself
sir.
to say no, can you?
No, I can say no. I can say yes.
But
what
you
I can
haven't.
say is
You just
your
can't
line
make
of
yourself do
questioning.
it. Do you
Senator,
support or oppose Iran and their hatred of Jews?
Again, I'm going to emphasize Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, none of them is going to, this discussion.
You can't bring yourself to say no, can
Sir,
you?
I don't support.
It's real simple.
Excuse me, I'm going to, if I may, as a Muslim woman, sir, I'm going to tell you I do not support Iran. But what I will tell you is that this conversation.
I'm running out of time. I'm sorry. You called our decision to cut funding. You called our decision to cut fund. Well, first, what's the United Nations Relief and Works Agency?
It's UNRWA, which is the institution that exists to provide services and aid to the nearly 6 million Palestinian refugees.
And you called our decision to cut funding for them, quote, an incredible moral failure, close quote.
That is absolutely correct. But again, I would suggest that conversation is about foreign policy.
We did that because 9 UNRWA staff members were fired for actually helping Hamas on October 7th. Isn't that the case?
I don't believe that that's correct in terms
Let
of...
me ask you one more time. You support Hamas, don't you? You support UNRWA and Hamas, don't you?
Sir,
Please.
I think it's exceptionally disappointing that you're looking at an Arab American witness before you and saying you support Hamas.
You know what's disappointing to me?
I do not support Hamas.
Bring yourself
I do
to
not
say
support Hamas.
You don't
or
support UNRWA. You don't support Hamas. You don't.
I was very clear in my support for UNRWA.
Hezbollah, and you don't support Iran. You should hide your head in a bag. Are you still a Marxist?
Thank you for the question, Senator.
You don't have to thank me. We'll say you are welcome.
I am not, nor have ever been a Marxist.
Just to clarify the record, Judge Dubose, do you recall when that interview was done, the interview that Senator Kennedy referred to?
No, Senator, I don't. And if I recall, and I was brought to my attention yesterday, that was never an interview that I did that was, I thought was going to be published. I never reviewed it. I didn't. It was an undergrad student who was interested in teaching, who spent 20 minutes.
What were you doing at the time?
I was teaching.
So this was before you even went to law school. This was
Yeah, I was
many years ago.
It was, Senator.
Perhaps during the time when my colleague Senator Kennedy was a Democrat.
There is no economic justice for the baby because the baby's dead, right?
I wouldn't refer. I don't really know how to answer your question. I would refer to
was
a
the baby
fetus.
dead or alive?
We're referring to a fetus.
Okay, is the fetus dead or alive after an abortion?
The fetus would be dead after an abortion.
All right. If the mother is healthy and the baby is healthy, do you support abortion up to the moment of birth?
So I think that's a really hard question to answer because that just doesn't happen. You're asking me about something that simply doesn't happen.
Well, it's legal.
I will tell you
It's legal in Vermont, New Jersey, Oregon, Colorado, New Mexico, Alaska, and the District of Columbia, and the Loon Wing of the Democratic Party supports abortion up to the moment of birth.
I will tell you as a person, I haven't personally had an abortion, and I will also tell you as a person looking at the evidence around me and understanding how complex the decisions are that people face.
Okay.
I'm just simply uncomfortable
I got to move on,
thinking that there's a
Professor, 'cause I don't
simple
think you're
answer that
gonna
applies
answer
to
my
everyone.
question.
I trust women and their healthcare providers.
It's real simple. You either support abortion for a healthy mother and baby up to the moment of birth, or you don't.
I think it was Senator Kennedy came to this hearing knowing that there was going to be a mother here who had to make the difficult decision to terminate a 20-week pregnancy, and he decided it was in his best interest to show a 21-week fetus. And his testimony was nothing but fear-mongering.
My name is Allie Phillips, and I live in Clarksville, Tennessee. My husband, Brian, works for a forklift company, and I run a small daycare out of our home. Together, we are raising Adelie, my 6-year-old daughter. We are not a wealthy family. We work hard to pay our bills on time each month. I spent the first several years of Adelie's life as a single mom, working 3 jobs while also finishing up my bachelor's degree. Brian, Adelie, and I were so excited to learn that I was pregnant in the fall of 2022, and even more thrilled to find out that we were having a little girl, Miley Rose. Everything was going perfectly until the day of my routine anatomy scan. At 19 weeks, when my doctor told us that they had found multiple concerning fetal issues. Several days later, as I waited to meet with the fetal specialist, I had no way of knowing that the next 10 minutes would change my life forever. The fetal specialist came in to go over the results, and that list was extensive. Miley's kidneys, bladder, and stomach were not functioning. Only 2 of the 4 chambers in her heart were not working. There was no amniotic fluid protecting her, and she had a rare brain condition. Her growth was a month behind, and she had no lung development. We were told that Miley was not compatible with life. Completely broken, I asked, "What do we do now?" The doctor suggested I had 2 options, that I could terminate the pregnancy, but due to Tennessee's ban on abortion, I would have to travel out of state for that health care. My second option would be to continue my pregnancy, but risk a miscarriage, a stillbirth, or giving birth for her to be put right into hospice care. And then the doctor warned that the longer I stayed pregnant, the worse Miley's condition would get and the more at risk my health would become. Knowing I had a daughter and a family to live for, we made the difficult decision to seek an abortion. So instead of grieving this devastating news, my mother and I began researching and calling clinics in states that allowed abortions after 20 weeks. Many did not have open appointments for weeks, and the longer I waited, the more extensive and expensive the procedure became. Ultimately, I found a clinic in New York City that could get me in the following week. Then, I had to book flights, find a hotel, arrange ground transportation, and childcare for Adelie. We had to quickly figure out how to afford all of it. We didn't have thousands of dollars sitting in our bank account. I had to start a GoFundMe effort online to help cover the unexpected medical and travel costs. Without the help of strangers on the internet, I would not have had the freedom to leave Tennessee or to make my own medical decisions, rights that my state denied me. Days later, I arrived at a New York City clinic alone. Due to security concerns, only patients are allowed in. I was there for several hours when a new ultrasound showed that Miley's heart was no longer beating. Sorry.
Take your time.
Distraught, I called Brian, my husband, to tell him over the phone that our much-wanted daughter was already gone and that the abortion scheduled for the following day would be done immediately. I went into surgery alone, and I sat in recovery alone. I grieved her loss alone in a city I've never been in, far away from the comfort of my home, my family, and my friends. No one should be treated this way, not in Tennessee and not in the other 13 states that now criminalize abortion, the standard of care that I needed in my situation. 2 days later, I flew back home to Tennessee. I had to go back to my life like nothing ever happened. I've never felt as small and inconsequential or unsupported as I did then. I was so depressed that I couldn't go to work for another week after we got back, and altogether, Brian and I lost 3 weeks of pay, which is rough for a family that lives paycheck to paycheck. My parents had to help us pay our bills the following month so we didn't lose our home. We want to have another child, but we're terrified because Tennessee still bans abortion and criminalizes doctors for providing essential health care for pregnant patients. Thank you for letting me honor Miley's memory by sharing our story today. Millions of people live under these laws just like Tennessee's, and I know that I was lucky to get the care I needed, but no one should have to rely on luck to get essential health care. We must have a federal right to access the health care we need, no matter where we live or how much we earn. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Phillips.
Professor Myers, you are here at the invitation of my Democratic colleagues, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. In his opening statement, my good friend Senator Whitehouse said, I want to quote, "Reproductive justice is economic justice," close quote. Do you agree with that?
I might, as an economist, use the word rights, but yeah, I do agree with that.
Okay. That's not true for the baby, is it?
Well, first of all, I would refer to a fetus, not
Yeah,
a baby.
but that's, well, a fetus. I refer to it as a baby. That's not true for the baby, is it?
The evidence that I presented to you, Senator Kennedy, was evidence about measurable effects on the lives of women, families,
Right, I
and
got
children
that
who were
part, but that's
born.
not true for the baby, is it?
I'm sorry, I don't really understand
Well, it's
the
not
question.
true, let me be
I
clear.
let me
I'm
back
sorry.
up. As an economist, I measure effects using data. I'm not here to talk about ethics, assignment of personhood. That's not my
Well, but you said
role.
you agreed with the chairman's statement that reproductive justice is economic justice. There is no economic justice for the baby because the baby's dead, right?
I wouldn't refer. I don't really know how to answer your question. I
You know,
would refer to
was
a
the baby
fetus.
dead or alive?
We're referring to a fetus.
Let's take a baby at 21 weeks. Hold up, Mike. This is a baby at 21 weeks, okay? The baby can feel pain, right?
Yes,
And the baby's pretty developed, right?
yes.
And do you know the name of the procedure that the doctor would use to abort that baby at 21 weeks?
I'm not a doctor, but I believe it's a DNR,
It's called dilation and evacuation. Is that right?
as far as I understand, yes.
Yeah. And first, the doctor would dilate the cervix, and then the doctor would take what's called the doctor would call it a Sofer clamp. It's really a pair of pliers with sharp teeth on the end. And without giving the baby any pain medication, the doctor would go through the vagina, through the uterus, and start tearing the baby apart. Is that right?
As far as I understand the procedure.
Yeah, and she might start with the legs and pull them out, and the arms and pull them out, right? And then she might go for the heart or the spine and just pull the baby out piece by piece. Is that right? Without giving the baby pain medication.
That's what I understand the procedure to be.
Okay, but then you got to get the head out. The baby's dead, but maybe not. Maybe it's still in pain, but then you got to get the head out. And even with the cervix dilated, you got to get the head out, which is hard. So then the doctor would go in and use those pliers to crush the baby's head. Is that right?
As far as I understand.
And then she'd pull the head out, the crushed skull out, right?
Senator Kennedy, your time has expired here.
Well, you
and
gave
Senator
the
Stabenow is
others
waiting.
plenty of time, Mr. Chairman.
Just letting you know, your time's expired. You have
Okay.
other senators waiting.
Well, I was waiting when you were letting others. I'm sorry you don't want to hear about what happens.
No, I don't think anybody
in
else
an
is
actual
going- I don't think
abortion, but
anybody else
I
has gone
thought that
over.
was what we were here to talk about.
No one else has gone over. Some of the witnesses went a little bit long, but on both sides, so
I thought we were here
trying to
about
control that.
protecting mothers and killing babies.
I'm going to turn to Senator Stabenow and Ms.
I'm sorry you
Phillips.
don't wanna
I'm sorry
hear
that
it.
this had to take
Like we've
place
got
in
a
front of
whole
you.
roster here.
My apologies.
I know it's ugly, but it's
Thank
the
you,
truth,
Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Phillips, I'm so sorry you just had to hear that, particularly as you're talking about the 1 year of anniversary of what you had to go through. It was shameful, and I'm very, very sorry. No one here should be judging you or any other woman who has to make decisions based on their life and what's happening in their pregnancy. And so, thank you so much for being here.
So now you've experienced a Senate hearing, lots of things have been said, and so I just want to give you the opportunity as we close. I may be the last senator to ask questions. After you've heard everything here today, is there anything that you would like to say in response and make sure that we can correct any misperceptions that some people have expressed?
Yes, and thank you so much, Senator, for giving me this opportunity. I will start by saying that I made a promise to Miley that her name would not die with her. So that is part of why my activism is so important to me, is so people know who she is. I want to make two statements before I go into my final thing that I would like the committee to know. I think it was Senator Kennedy came to this hearing knowing that there was going to be a mother here who had to make the difficult decision to terminate a 20-week pregnancy, and he decided it was in his best interest to show a 21-week fetus. And his testimony was nothing but fear-mongering. From my experience, that was not my experience, what he was trying to persuade. Also, Mrs. Call, to answer your question to what he had asked, my procedure was an abortion. It is on my medical paperwork that I had an abortion, even though my daughter was deceased. It's not back and forth. An abortion is a medical procedure, whether that fetus is deceased or not. But I would like to ask the committee to remember my story and to remember that I'm one of thousands, if not millions, of people in this country that need or needed abortion access, and to remember that it's not black and white and one size does not fit all. We can't be putting politics into healthcare decisions, and also to remember these facts, that abortion access is essential healthcare, no matter how you want to look at it. It's essential healthcare for so many. And exceptions don't work. I'm a living testimony to that. Tennessee had a very vague exception to protect the life of the mother. My life was at risk, and I did not qualify. I would ask the committee to consider passing a law that allows access without exception, just all across the board. Because when someone needs health care, they should be able to receive that health care when they need it and not have to navigate the hurdles like I did. Because like I said, I don't know if I made it to New York, if I would be here with you today. So I'm very thankful for the opportunity that I was given to get to New York, and now this opportunity to fight back against the extreme bans that we're facing in many states.
Good morning, Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, and distinguished members of this committee. Thank you for convening this hearing today to address the crisis of hate crime in our country. I want to begin by offering my condolences and support to Imwadia on the tragic loss of her son. I also want to acknowledge the members of the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh who are also here and extend my condolences and the support to them as well. I'm truly sorry for your immeasurable loss, and the commitment that we make to continue to focus on hate is rooted in the need to address the crisis your families in pain have endured. Understanding the nature of hate crime data, I would suggest this room includes other victims of hate crimes, some who have reported it, others who have not, some where the assailant was charged with a hate crime, and others where they were not. In all cases, it was an assault or a murder, arson or vandalism, or a threat to commit such a crime, and the motivation for committing the crime was based on individuals' action or perceived personal characteristics of the victim's identity. In all cases, it was a crime where the immediate victim was harmed, as well as others who may be like them, their community. Hate crimes instill fear in communities, and because the safety of us all is linked, because we are on a very basic level all in one community with one another, hate crimes impact our entire country. As we attempt to address this hate crime crisis we are in, we are well served remembering that. Why do I say a hate crime crisis? because our government's official hate crime statistics provide the data confirming this crisis. From 2015 to 2022, we have seen a 99% increase in hate crime. 99% increase. From just under 6,000 reported hate crimes in 2015 to 11,643 in 2022. The FBI's 2023 data has not been released yet, but based on the state data AI has pulled in preparation for this hearing, it is likely we will see yet another consecutive year increase. Every single year since the 2016 presidential election, the trajectory has been a dangerous increase of hate crimes in our country. Anti-Black or African-American hate crimes continue to be a plurality of all hate crimes reported. There were 3,424 in 2022. Anti-Asian or Pacific Islander hate crime saw a major spike in hate, the most acute stages during the COVID-19 pandemic and its surrounding discourse by some elected officials. Anti-Muslim hate crimes were nearly 5% of all reported hate crimes during the 2016 presidential election and the discussions of a Muslim ban. The only year with a higher record was 2001 in the post-9/11 backlash. Anti-Hispanic and Latino hate crimes have shown a persistent increase with a record-breaking 738 hate crimes in 2022. The annual number of reported hate crimes targeting the Latino community has increased in the last 7 years on a manner that has outpaced the overall increase of all reported hate. And while we've seen an increase, all of this, while we've seen an increase in anti-immigrant rhetoric and xenophobia, particularly being experienced right now by the Haitian American community. LGBTQ and hate crime almost doubled from 2015 to 2022, with 1,925 on record in 2022. And while the annual number of hate crimes based on sexual orientation now represents a smaller share of all hate crimes reported each year, that is not the case with gender identity hate crimes, which have increased 4% overall reported in 2022. With regard to Arab Americans and Jewish Americans, we took a deep dive into the data after October 7th by examining available state-level data from 27 states and the District of Columbia. And with all the necessary caveats about state-level versus federal data, here too the data confirms what we know. Anti-Arab has increased from 104 in 2022 to 180 in 2023. Anti-Jewish from 1,311 to 2,073. Further, isolating our October-December for the 21 states in DC where we could do that, it shows about half of all of the incidents reported in 2023 occurred in the last 3 months, October, November, and December. That's a 54% increase for Arab Americans. 54 and 49 for Jewish Americans. Wadea al-Fayoumi's murder in his home in Illinois, the attempted murder of Hisham Awartni, Kenan Abdulhamid, and Tahsin Al-Hamid in Vermont, while 3 college students were out for a walk, wearing their keffiyehs and speaking occasionally in Arabic, is another example. As is the unnamed 25-year-old Brooklyn man attacked with a baseball bat after being defamed. The backlash effect is real for both communities, and the historic levels of hate crimes we're experiencing harm individuals, communities, and our country. We can and must respond more effectively. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify before you today, and I look forward to your questions.
Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rabbi, do you believe there are a substantial number of people at Harvard University who believe in diversity, equity, inclusion, and the right to harass Jews?
I do.
That's a yes?
Yes.
And do you believe those people have acted on their self-anointed right to harass Jews?
Yes.
And has the administration at Harvard University allowed that to happen?
Yes.
Is that true at University of California at Berkeley?
Yes.
How about UCLA?
Yes.
How about NYU?
Yes.
A lot of other universities too. Isn't that the case?
That is correct.
Now, Title VI says that if you receive federal money, you can't harass Jews. Isn't that true?
That is correct.
Has the Biden-Harris administration taken away the money of Harvard?
No.
How about Berkeley?
Nope.
How about UCLA?
No, sir.
How about NYU?
No.
They've just talked, haven't they?
That is correct.
Okay. Do you think this condoned behavior at these universities, this condoned belief at these universities, and let me state it again, they believe in diversity, equity, inclusion, and the right to harass Jews. It's what they believe. What you do is what you believe. Everything else is just cottage cheese. Do you think that is consistent with their mission as universities?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So above and beyond the question of money, it is the morality, the purpose of higher education in America, is it not?
That is correct.
Ms. Berry, you are the executive director of the Arab American Institute. Is that correct?
Correct, sir.
Okay. And according to your website, you're also, I'm going to quote here, a longtime Democratic Party activist who served as a member of the 2016 Democratic National Convention's Platform Standing Committee, close quote. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. You support Hamas, do you not?
Senator, oddly enough, I'm going to say thank you for that question because it demonstrates the purpose of our hearing today in a very effective way.
Let's start first with a yes or no.
Hamas is a foreign terrorist organization that I do not support, but you asking the executive director of the Arab American Institute that question very much puts the focus on the issue of hate in our country.
Well, I got your answer, and I appreciate it. What is the, you support Hezbollah too, don't you?
Again, I find this line of questioning extraordinarily disappointing,
Is that a
Senator.
no?
That
Or
you
a
have
yes?
you have Arab American constituents that you represent
is
in
that
your great state.
Yes, ma'am, I understand that, but my time's limited, and I apologize, but is that a yes or a no?
Yes or no question to do I support Hezbollah? The answer is I don't support violence, whether it's Hezbollah, Hamas, or any other entity that invokes it.
You can't
So
bring
no,
yourself to say no, can you?
No, I can say no. I can say yes.
But
What
you
I can
haven't.
say is
You just
your
can't
line
make
of
yourself do
questioning.
it. Do you
Senator.
support or oppose Iran and their hatred of Jews?
Again, I'm going to emphasize Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, none of them is going to, this
You
discussion.
can't bring yourself to say no, can
Sir,
you?
I don't support.
It's real simple.
Excuse me. I'm going to,
Ian,
if I may, as a Muslim woman, sir, I'm going to tell you I do not support Iran. But what I will tell you is that this conversation.
I'm running out of time. I'm sorry.
Ms. Berry, I'm going to allow you to respond to any one or all of those questions at this point.
Senator Durbin, thank you very much for holding this hearing and for elevating the issue of hate crime. It's regrettable that as I sit here, have experienced the very issue that we're attempting to deal with today. The introduction of foreign policy is not how we keep Arab Americans or Jewish Americans or Muslim Americans or Black people or Asian Americans, anybody safe. This has been regrettably a real disappointment, but very much an indication of the danger to our democratic institutions that we're in now. And I deeply regret that, and I do hope that my testimony today has been helpful to understanding the need to respond to hate.
You gave an interview in 2000 to the feminist press. In fact, you didn't turn it over to us. We had to ask for it. We found it on our own. And you did then turn it over to us. And this is what you were describing your time working in a coffee shop. You said, quote, the kids would come into the cafe all the time. We'd talk about what they're doing. We'd talk about their classes. And I was in my Marxist phase. So you used to be a Marxist, but you're not now?
No, Senator, if I may, the context of the first of that interview, I had no idea that interview was something that was going to be published. I did an interview with it
Did you mean what you said, whether it was published or not, or whether we'd find it? Trying to understand what you believe. You said I was in my Marxist phase.
Thank you, Senator.
Still in your Marxist phase, or was that in the past?
No, Senator, if I may explain.
Sure.
I was a political science major. When I graduated from college, I immersed myself in a ton of political theory. I read Hobbes, I read Locke, I read Rousseau, I read Marx. I went through a phase where I was into Eastern religion, where I read the Tao Te Ching, the Analects of Confucius. So I suspect, and I don't know that that quote with the article, I don't know if she was referring to what I was studying at the time, but as a political science major and as a theorist and someone who was considering teaching a course in political theory, I immersed myself in those
but
things.
she didn't refer to anything. She meaning, I assume you're referring to the reporter who interviewed. These are your words, and you didn't say I'm in my Hobbes phase. You didn't say second. I'm in my Locke phase. I mean, you didn't say I'm in my Rousseau phase. You said I was in my Marxist phase, and my question is real simple. Are you still a Marxist?
Senator, I've never been a Marxist, and I'm not a Marxist today.
Okay. All right. Have you ever served as lead counsel in a federal bench trial?
No, Senator. With my experience as both a state prosecutor, as an in-house counsel at Schneider Electric, doing very complex compliance and regulatory work, and my work as a district court sitting judge, handling general
Yes,
jurisdiction.
ma'am. I've read your resume. I just want to get through these questions. Have you ever served as lead counsel in a federal jury trial?
No, Senator, I have not.
Okay. Have you ever attended a federal jury trial and
No,
watched
Senator.
it live?
No, no. No, Senator.
Have you ever watched a federal jury trial on TV?
I don't believe that federal trials are televised, so no, I have not, Senator.
Have you ever watched any trial on television?
Senator, I handle and preside over trials every single day as a state district court judge. We follow the rules of evidence, criminal procedure, civil procedure. So I feel that with my experience, that I am well suited and capable to make the transition from our state district court to our U.S. district court.
Okay. When you were practicing law, did you ever draft a motion or a brief applying the federal rules of evidence?
No, Senator. As a state prosecutor.
I'm sorry, you said what?
I said no, Senator.
No, okay. When you were practicing law, did you ever draft a motion or a brief applying the federal rules of civil procedure?
Well, I believe that there were times at Schneider Electric giving advice to business units regarding the federal acquisition regulations, that I would draft briefs to give them counsel as to how to be compliant with the federal rules. So in that respect, the answer would be yes.
Okay. What's an interpleader action?
Interpleader action is a third party who's going to intervene in a civil suit. They're not a primary party.
Okay. What's voir dire?
Voir dire is the process with which jurors are questioned by the state and by defense and prosecutors to serve on a
Have
panel.
you ever conducted a voir dire in federal court?
Not in federal court.
Okay. I'm going to yield back 6 seconds, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Whitehouse.
Just to clarify the record, Judge Dubose, do you recall when that interview was done, the interview that Senator Kennedy referred to?
No, Senator, I don't. And if I recall, and I was brought to my attention yesterday, that was never an interview that I did that I thought was going to be published. I never reviewed it. It was an undergrad student who was interested in teaching, who spent 20
What
minutes.
were you doing at the time?
I was teaching.
So this was before you even went to law school. This was
Yeah, I was really early.
many years ago.
It was, Senator.
Perhaps during the time when my colleague, Senator Kennedy, was a Democrat. Showing that people can change their views, even if it were true that you were then in a Marxist phase.
Senator Graham.
Mr. Chairman, my name was invoked.
I noticed.
As a proud Democrat, we were like
My
that part of
name
your
was
history.
invoked, Mr. Chairman. Now, I just want to let the record reflect, and I love Senator Whitehouse.
Uh-oh.
But I'll tell you one thing, I've never been a Marxist. I've never been a Marxist. And I've never admitted I was a Marxist and then not turned the document over to this committee. We had to find it. And we did. And now your testimony, the testimony under oath today is, I didn't say that. The reporter said that. No, the witness said that. And then the testimony is, well, I didn't mean it to become public. That's not the issue. So, you know, if we won't get personal here, we can.
Senator Graham?
Thank you. Let's agree on the following. A Louisiana Democrat's probably not a Marxist. But the bottom line is, why wasn't it available to the committee, Mr. Bell?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I had no idea that the article existed. When I did the interview with that undergrad student, it was for a paper for a class.
It's something you didn't know about.
I was in an interview with a young lady who was interested in teaching as an undergrad, and I was just sharing my transition, how I went to be into teaching.
I understand. Your testimony is, this is not something I've seen before. Had you seen it before?
No, Senator.
Okay, so if you hadn't seen it, you didn't know about it, so that's why you didn't turn it over.
That's correct.
Okay, just make sure of that.